Hi, this is Tobias Milchereit. I'm a director on MarshBerry's financial advisory team, and with me here today is Margeaux Giles, the founder and CEO of IRYS.
Thank you for having me today, guys. My name is Margeaux Giles, founder and CEO of IRYS InsurTech, and we are an operational platform for MGAs, distribution, retail agents, anybody that deals with insurance and direct to consumer. And we provide all of the things you need to run your business effectively and to do it in the future as well.
So, based on your experience in working with distributors especially, what are some of the challenges that you see they face when it comes to implementing new technology?
Implementing any tech, but I think it's threefold, really. So, and we've talked about this together over drinks, and especially here at MarshBerry Peak Performance. I think the first big one that I see is really a lack of talent and knowledge. So outside of the tech, which is great, and we all love to play with new tech when it comes to the market, I've noticed a significant hurdle, especially for MGA, specialty, anybody really in retail, where you have a great market and you have a great business that you've built. You focus on all of these great things like distribution and how you're gonna get market capacity, but then when it comes time to hiring a tech team, or somebody internally on staff, it's something that's typically outsourced, and it's almost like a secondary thought. And the problem is tech is moving so fast right now that if you don't have somebody that's deeply ingrained in your business, but then also can understand what's coming down the pike and how to procure tech, and how to ask and answer those really highly technical questions, you end up with shiny toy syndrome, which we've talked about, with something looks really good on the outside, but then you deploy it inside the business and it kind of falls apart. So for me, that's probably step one for anybody that's looking to deploy tech. You need to make sure you have the right people on staff that know how to actually do that process.
And it's a very crowded market space, right? There are a lot of technology providers out there, and I think part of the issue that especially distributors face is they don't know where to start. So if you could maybe give advice to some of the specialty distributors that are looking to deploy technology, where should they start? How should they approach the search for the right technology partner?
So I always say it's kind of like dating, it really is. And so like, if your goal in dating is to have fun and go out and have a summer fling, right? Then you're gonna look for very different tech than if you're looking to get married. And I think we see that in the market right now. You'll have a lot of what I call point solutions. So they solve a very specific problem for a very specific workflow, and those are great, and they can give you those quick wins because they're usually really easy to deploy. But then what I'm seeing as a larger sort of Horizon 2, Horizon 3 problem that's evolving now is the foundational tech is typically pretty old. So we're using something that was built in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s in some instances, and we're trying to deploy something like generative AI or even agentic AI, which is really kind of bringing to light the cracks and the problems with foundational tech. So a lot of people want a quick win. They want a really fast ROI. And so these quick point solutions look like they're very appetizing and enticing, and you can get those wins with those products. But there's only so many of those that you can stack on top of each other, right? Those are not gonna build you a core foundational platform. And so we're seeing a lot of pilots that never we call it pilot purgatory. So we're seeing a lot of new tech come in and it looks really promising, but then when they try to deploy it at scale, it starts to fail. And so for me, that's a really, really big issue. It's the advice I would give someone, which is, what is it that you're trying to solve for? If you're trying to get a really quick win and you just want ROI, then there are, like to your point, there are a ton of techs out there you can choose from. But if you're looking for something that's gonna have a 5-year yield, or you're looking for something that's got future proofing for the next 10 years and you wanna make that investment, you wanna become a digital broker, you really need to stop looking at those point solutions and looking at your foundational tech.
And one of the things that you always highlight is the data integrity. It really starts with that, right?
Yes.
So maybe talk a little bit about that, what that really means.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the foundational point, which is what I see a lot, especially in MGAs, because typically they maybe spin out of a brokerage, or maybe they spin out of a practice of a larger MGA. So you'll see a lot of disparate data silos. So maybe they have a good website form that they're collecting information in, and then they validate data, and then the underwriter will go in and they'll get more data, and these are all happening in different systems. And so the data integrity is almost truly dependent on whatever silo that it's happening in. But when you want to do something like look at analytics across your whole business, so if I'm going up into the manager level or the EVP level, and I want to say, well, tell me how this particular product or platform is performing across all of my distribution channels, that starts to fall apart, it starts to crumble because you don't have data integrity. And if you get into the carrier side and the reinsurance side, you actually see a lot of what we call master data management. So Informatica is a great example of that, but there are companies whose entire existence is to normalize data across silos. And when you look at foundational tech, what you'll see is you'll have a policy admin system, and then you'll have a CRM, and maybe you have a billing platform. And there's this really important piece that's always missing in the architecture, and it's master data management. And you can't do anything
without that.
Yeah. And it's effectively completely missing in the MGA and really in the distribution side as a whole. Yeah.
And there's always the debate buy versus build. So what's your recommendation there?
I'm going to use an Elon Musk reference, okay? Love, hate, I don't know. I'm going to get into it on this recording. The way I built IRYS, because we also do the buy versus build as a tech platform, it was a big deal. You only have so much capital to deploy. Where do you spend it? And I like to think about the way that Elon built Tesla. And so they put their money into the IP, which is the battery of Tesla, right? So that is their IP, that is Tesla's core. That's where a lot of the money went. The rest of the car is all manufactured parts from somebody else. And so if I was giving this advice to an insurance distribution company, I would say, what is your IP? What makes you you? What is your differentiator in the market? You want to build that tech. Whatever that is, you want to build that algorithm, you want to train that LLM, whatever it is, that's you. Everything else you should be buying.
Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in.